Today's 5-minute reflection on the Psalms is from Psalm 46, one of my favorite passages of the Psalms. This is written by the sons of Korah, and it's the famous "God is our refuge and strength, our ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth gives way, though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea." And it goes on to say, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us, and the God of Jacob is our fortress." There's much more it says in these short 11 verses, but definitely the main point of this passage is that God is with his people in the most horrendous circumstances that you can imagine, that when we are God's people and when we cry out to him, he alone is our refuge. He alone is our strength, not any other thing, not trusting in man, not trusting in our abilities, not trusting in other people even, as good as they are, not trusting in military or political answers, but crying out to God. And so there is a historical context. Many theologians, we don't know exactly what the historical context. Many would point to the time when Jerusalem was under siege, and King Hezekiah, you remember the Assyrian army from the north after Samaria fell in 732 BC, and then the same army under Sennacherib had encircled Jerusalem and cut it off, and the people were starving. They were under siege. They couldn't come and go. There was no water. But yet under Hezekiah, as they prayed, and you can read about this in Kings and Chronicles, and as God's people cried out to God, and God gave Hezekiah the wisdom to dig tunnels. And you can see this in archaeology today in Jerusalem, under the city of Jerusalem during the siege. These tunnels perfectly is the provision of God's people of how they had water in Jerusalem under the midst of the most horrendous siege. And that's why they think it's because there's a river whose streams make it glad the city of God. And that's pointing to, again, many think that this is pointing to how God provided for his people in Hezekiah's time. So the main point, though, is not that we can trust in anything that we can do. The main point is that God himself is with us. God himself is the one who acts, and we don't trust in horses or chariots, as other places say, but we trust in the Lord our God. The most important truth that I was reminded of in this text is the old saying that peace is not the absence of conflict, but it is the presence of God. And that's what we see here. The psalmist says, God is our refuge and strength and a very present help in trouble. A lot of times we want to pray that God would remove us from trouble. Most of the time, that's what we ask. God, help me to have a good day. Take these things away from me and, help me to experience what I want. But more often than not, what we see in Scripture is God provides for his people by being with them. So it's not just that God would remove the pain from us, but God would bear us up and strengthen us through that. And that's what the other prophets would say, I will strengthen you, I will help you, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that's what we see here. It's the nations are raging, the kingdoms are tottering, but the Lord of hosts is with us. That means the God who commands the angel armies. God is our refuge. It's this command that we are to look at and see what God has done in the past. Come behold the works of the Lord, how the Lord has brought desolations on the earth. He alone makes the wars to cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow, he shatters the spear, he burns the chariots with fire. And so it's to trust God. It's to look to what God has done. It's to thank God for his provision currently. And it's also in verse 10 to be still, to stop our striving, literally what the word means, to stop striving and know, believe, trust that God is with us, that he will be exalted in this situation. So I suppose one practical area, wrapping this up, is that when fears come, when trials and worries come, which they come every day, it's to, just like Hezekiah did, call on the name of the Lord, trust in God, ask that God wouldn't just remove the trial from us, but that he would strengthen us through them, and that we would trust and know that he's God, he's on the throne, he will be exalted, and look for his glory in the situation, not just my comfort. And know that the Lord who commands the angel armies, he is with us. That's what this psalm is all about.